Hey up, time for Spine number 5, and this is a film that I've been interested in since the very beginning of this collection. The Zodiac Killer. Not to be confused with 2007's David Fincher film Zodiac, instead this is a 1971 American slasher film, directed by a guy called Tom Hanson, who is the owner of Pizza Man Pizzeria, and outside of that hasn't really done much by way of film. He did do a drug-related thing called All the Grass Goes to Pot, or A Ton of Grass Goes to Pot I think it's called, which just sounds really trashy. So this was filmed guerrilla style and was made in an attempt to catch the actual Zodiac Killer. We'll touch more on this later, but that whole setup alone makes this a pretty unique film. Let's see if it's any good, shall we?
You walk around like everything is all right. Don't you know people like me exist?
Hey, listen, tramp.
You tried that already.
I'll do it again. How you ever got this job, I'll never know.
Oh, shut up! Quit picking on me.
Don't you?
So the film is a loose adaptation of the actual Zodiac Killer murders, with the murders being shown in the film being close-ish to the real-life counterparts, and the rest of it just sort of being speculation. The film starts, the first half is following a red herring by the guise of a guy called McDury, who is basically this pissed-off, womanising divorcee. But he meets his fate and the murders are still happening, so we then start following the actual film's Zodiac Killer. The police are on his tail, but they're not doing a very good job at catching him, and he's just sort of reveling in his murders and killing. There is a motive, and then it sort of gets loose, and I'm not sure. The main motive is that the people he kills, he believes, will turn into slaves in the afterlife for him when he dies. And this is paralleled by a cipher left by the real Zodiac Killer. The film is slow, it plods along, but it's not the worst. It's just sort of inoffensive and bland. I guess the main problem that this film might have is that it's very forgettable.
What do you want, bum?
Right? What do you say to the nice man? Say thank you.
I don't like him.
Bobby!
The acting's fine, really. It isn't great, but it's far from ridiculous. Although the guy playing Zodiac in this is pretty theatrical and campy, which is quite fun. The gore is fine. It's not over the top, but we do get some fun kills, like the old woman getting killed with the car bonnet. That made me chuckle. Fun little bits like that. The rest of the film is just sort of serviceable, I guess. Not great, not awful. That is except for the music. The free jazzy soundtrack is really good in part. So, going into this film, I read that it's obviously meaning to draw out Zodiac, which I took to mean that they were going to try and annoy him, paint his character as sort of like a fool, I guess, something to really rile him up in his cinema seat and make him stand up and be like, no, I'm not like that, something like that. And to do that, I thought they'd use some dirty tactics, and it's the 70s, so sensibilities are a bit different, but I were expecting him to have some sort of like big disability maybe, or be like a real sexual deviant, stuff that would really rile a guy up in the 70s. But weirdly, it doesn't really do any of that. And towards the end, this is the strangest part, towards the end, I don't know if this is what they were going for, but it felt like they were trying to make him a bit more sympathetic. It's really odd, like, they really didn't paint him as this weirdo, I guess, like I expected him to. If anything, he comes across more like a Ted Bundy, where he's sort of charismatic and friendly. Really strange, don't know.
But I can't promise anything.
So this film has a hell of a lot going on in the background, and it is way more interesting than the actual film itself. So as I've already said, this was meant to lure the Zodiac Killer to a cinema to watch a film about himself, you know, really digging in on the ego, and then make him so annoyed that he'd give himself away in the theatre and people could arrest him straight away. There was even police hiding out in the screens, you know, serving ice cream and stuff, keeping an eye out. And then there was a ballot that went around. You'd get given a slip of paper, and at the end of the film you had to write down who you thought the Zodiac Killer was. Not only that though, then in the ballot box was a person cross-referencing the handwriting from what they've got from the Zodiac, from his ciphers that he'd sent in, with the handwriting by the person who'd guessed who the killer was. Obviously this didn't work, although Hanson does claim that a guy that he harassed at one of the events was the real deal. But who knows, it's all up in the air, isn't it? The event was also sponsored by, who was it now? Kawasaki, the motorbike company. There was a chance to win a motorbike, apparently in a raffle, but then it came out a few years later that it was all a scam and nobody won a bike at any point. So then the Zodiac Killer case was closed in 2003, but then was reopened in 2007. Now, I need to check the name on this. An FBI whistleblower in 2023 claimed that it was identified as an Air Force vet called Gary Francis Post? I'm not sure how you say that last name. But whether or not this is true, who knows? Sorry, I just needed to check on that guy's name because I keep forgetting it. Anyway, that's all the background that I've got on this film. Let's move on to film number 2.
In another...
You know, it sure is creepy that madman isn't caught yet. Those cops should have had him after the cab driver got it.
Proceeded to urinate in customers' drinks, yelling, "The fountain of youth lives?"
Another Son of Sam is a 1977 crime thriller directed by Dave Adams, who looks like he mainly did stunt work, and he hasn't really done any other films in his career, by the looks of it. This film was originally shot under the title Hostage in 1975, but the name was changed to later cash in on the capture of the Son of Sam Killer, which means that this film has nothing to do with Son of Sam at all. Which is really disappointing, because it means there's no talking dog, it means there's no weird cult stuff. Nothing. Massive shame. What we do get instead is a psychotic killer escapes from an asylum, and then the rest of the film is just cops slowly trying to get him in a college campus. This film is incredibly boring.
What are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing? I'm going swimming. You better hurry up.
For just a few minutes. I'm leaving now to go look in on a patient, but that shouldn't take long.
The acting's fine, not great, not awful, just sort of there, really. Same for the gore, there's a few gunshots and a bit of blood here and there, but it's nothing really to talk about. A lot of the film can really be described that way. Maybe except for the editing, that did stand out to me. It really loves to do this thing where at the end of a scene, it'll freeze frame with the audio still playing, and it just comes across as either amateurish or unfinished to me. Not great at all. While Zodiac was dull but manageable, you know, inoffensive and easy-ish to watch, this was boring to a painful extent. It was one of those films where when it's finished, I suddenly panicked because I thought, oh god, I haven't retained anything that I've just seen. But really there was nothing to retain because nothing really happens in this. It was an excruciating 72 minutes.
Leave us alone! You filthy!
Oh, what is he, a rookie? No.
Okay, let's take a look at these prints then. They're fine for the most part, but you can tell they probably weren't stored in the best conditions in the 70s. Zodiac's in a 4:3 aspect ratio and is very, very grainy, but the picture quality is pretty sharp and the audio is decent. Son of Sam is a little worse for wear, a little worse than Zodiac, definitely. It flickers, it's got colour flicker all the way throughout. It's a little grainier, but again the picture's sharp and the audio is decent, if not slightly more muffled than Zodiac. But as I say, these aren't too bad at all, they're very watchable. And on the disc we get the 2 features. We get an audio commentary for Zodiac. We also get an interview with Zodiac's director and the producer, who's called Manny Nedwick, I believe. And finally we get the AGFA trailer reels stuff, which I think it's always tailored to the types of films that are on the disc. Not too bad, not too bad. I'd say it's standard, really, for these sorts of discs, which, you know, it's better than something like Vipco or something like that, but it's pretty standard.
A running silhouette, Ken? That's damn good shooting. What time's the lineup?
Okay, time for the case. We get a slipcover with decent artwork on it. All the information's correct, delving a little into Zodiac's history, which is a good selling point for the film, to be honest. Runtime seems right, and it all reads very well. Not massive on this full stop followed by an and, though, you know I'm a bit of a stickler for that. We also get a reversible cover with the film's original poster on it, which is a nice little touch, and we get another booklet featuring an interview with Tom Hanson and some behind the scenes stills. Once again, some pretty decent packaging. Overall then, the Zodiac Killer is pretty heavily on the dull side. There's the odd point of interest here and there, but most of it is just an inoffensively bland slog, really. It's not the worst, we've seen a lot worse on this channel, but there's not much to it, and I'd say probably these days it's more of a curiosity piece. Meanwhile, Another Son of Sam was a cheap and painful cash grab that did absolutely nothing for me. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend either of these films, but if you are planning on watching one, make it Zodiac Killer. And also this release isn't too bad, to be honest, you could do a lot worse, and it's pretty good. So yeah, bit of a mixed bag this episode, and next time on the 101 and AGFA series is one that I've been dreading rewatching. I have seen this film before and I dreaded the day when I would have to rewatch it for these reviews, but here we go. We're going to be checking out She-Freak.